hold the space where black bodies thrive with strength and grace.
Welcome to another episode of Melanin Matters, honoring Black bodies through contrology. We hold safe wellness spaces where Black bodies can freely breathe, move, and thrive. We're on a mission to globally impact the Pilates industry while shifting the narrative of what Black wellness looks like. Because wellness is a right for all, not a privilege for the few. And in today's episode, we're going to get into Black history of Pilates. We're going to give honor to the creator, Joseph Pilates, and then we'll go more into Black history because we have a Black history maker in Pilates right here with us today. And I'm going to allow her to introduce herself to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sonia R. Price Herbert, and I am the founder and creator of Black Girl Pilates, which is a platform that highlights, supports, and educates Black women and femme Pilates instructors all over the world. We highlight everybody, and I say we meaning me, but or as the community, we highlight and educate and support everyone because we're here as a community doing that. Started it in May 27th, 2017. After not seeing myself, looking for myself, even after having been, introduced to Pilates by a Black woman in a Black school with Black people. But after being certified, not really seeing, anyone beyond my teacher and maybe one other person. And I knew that we had to be out there. And I knew that, this was a method that I wanted to introduce to my own community, to the Black community. And so that was very important to me. So, which is why I got certified, and many thanks to my very first teacher and a very, very long time friend, Cynthia Shipley, who is a Romana's Pilates teacher trainer and one of the best out there, actually. So yeah, that's pretty much who I am.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief history of Pilates, and then we're going to dig into or unpack the Black history in Pilates. Pilates was created by a man. Pilates was not created for dancers. It was created by a man named Joseph Pilates to help heal himself. He had childhood health issues like asthma, rickets. He was actually a very active person. He was a skier, he was a boxer, he was a gymnast, and you can kind of see some of those influences in the work of Pilates, which initially was named contrology. It wasn't named Pilates until after he had passed on. Well, Mr. Pilates was in Germany, started working, got a little older, started working. He's out. The war is going on. He ends up in England, and they're thinking that him and his crew are the ops, so they get captured and they get thrown in this internment camp. Right. So they're trying to tell him, no, we just trying to work. They're like, nope, you're going to stay over here. So some of the people got injured in that process. Some people were sick, during that process. And so he kind of took it upon himself to be the orderly, right? Where he was the charge. He was in charge of the people who were there. And he started to help them to exercise. And for those who were injured, maybe even lacking mobility or maybe missing some limbs, he started working with them on their beds. And so he started to rearrange or reconstruct the beds. And that's where the prototype of the reformer that you see, where that came from. Joseph Pilates created that. He created a whole bunch of stuff. And let me just say this, and then we'll get back to the history. Pilates is an entire system. It's not just one thing. So there's not a mat Pilates, reformer Pilates, barrel Pilates. Like all of it, Pilates is the same. You just use different apparatuses between along your journey. Okay, so let's get back to this. So he worked with the people who were there, was starting to get them stronger. And by the time he got out, he ended up working with the German military police. And so then the German army was like, you look like you're pretty good over here. These dudes are kind of strong, they fast, they doing all of the things. Do you want to work for us? And he was like, He kept asking him. He was like, nah, I'm a lover, not a fighter. That's not my thing. I'm not into that. And so they kept pressuring him. And he was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm so good. I'm out of here. So he leaves Germany to come over to the United States. On the way over, on the boat ride, Praise Jesus that the boat didn't sink. I'm just saying. He met his wife, which was her name was Clara. She was a nurse. Yeah, Clara was a nurse. And they ended up opening up a Pilates or Contrology studio in New York. It was in close proximity to a dance studio. Again, Pilates was not created for dancers. The whole system was created before he even left Germany. He already had that. Injured dancers or an injured dancer, we don't know if it was a group of them or just one, came to him. He helped that person or those people get a lot stronger. They went back to their dance community, back to the dance studio, stronger dancers, right? They just better, moving better through life. You know, their bodies were in much better condition. Some other dancers caught on to that and they figured like, okay, well, instead of me going injured, how about I go over there to prevent injury? And he showed them how to use his system. And he was pretty arrogant too, because he said that everybody should be doing his exercises every day and then the world would be a much better place. He was an arrogant little
Yeah.
dude, but you know, he knew his stuff. Now I got to give him credit for that. He knew his stuff. He knew he had some good stuff.
Yep.
And so that's how it started spreading amongst the dance community. Again, Pilates was not created for dancers. And so I'm going to let Sonia pick it up from here as to how it became a part of Black history or how Black history became a part of Pilates through the dance community. Take it away, Sonia.
Well, we were very blessed to have Kathleen Stanford Grant, who was the first Black woman, first Black person to ever teach Pilates. And so she was teaching with Corolla Trier, who was another like protege of Joseph Pilates, and she had a studio, so she was working there, and she wanted to learn more about this method. And so Corolla said, "Well, hey, he's still alive, so why don't you go, hit him up?" So she did. So she wanted to find out more about this method and why he created it, what the exercises and everything like that. So she actually, along with Lolita San Miguel, who is a Latina, clock that, they
Mhm.
both went to him and asked if they could be apprentices with him. So they go to Lolita and Kathy go to Joseph Pilates and they say like, hey, we want to use this method as they're trying to get some sort of vocational hours that had something to do with physical therapy. I think, not quite sure, but something along those lines. So they went and asked for it. But just are we shocked? No. So they
Exactly.
yeah,
Right.
so they apprenticed with him. They're the only elders who actually did, um, and were qualified or certified by Joseph Pilates. They're the only two elders who have. So a black woman and a brown woman, which is a big thing. So eventually, Kathy begins to manage a studio at Henry Bendel's, which is like a big luxury department store. And from what I've heard, and I think what I read, Joseph Pilates suggested that she be the one to go over there and teach. And so she did. He provided her with all the equipment and things like that. And she, even though she was a very fair skinned woman and very approachable, because, the fairer skinned you are, the more approachable you are, the closer to white you are. However, she did experience, some racism and things like that. And, a lot of the dancers that she worked with were black dancers. She knew they couldn't afford it. She charged them probably little to nothing. But from what I remember, she they came early and they had to come through the back door when they did that.
Mm.
So I doubt if any of those dancers were white. I'm sure the majority of them were black dancers. And so since they came so early, because they also had to go and rehearse and things like that. Um, and, again, from what I've heard from the three women who are actually still with us today, who I'll talk about later, um, she didn't charge them much. So a lot of the time she would use them as assistants or just to help with other folks, and things like that. Um, and so the second person to actually teach Pilates was another Black woman by the name of Wendy Amos, who is still with us today. She helped her to run the studio, um, She taught all the classes, the sessions. She knew everything from top to bottom. Um, After that was Dr. Jacqueline Sawyer. And then soon, not long after that was Sarita Allen. All three of these women are still here with us. They're all former dancers. Sarita Allen's one of the best, she was one of the most well-known dancers in the Alvin Ailey company. And so we're truly just blessed to have them still here to tell us all about her. Because she had died before I had even she had been dead maybe 3 months, and when I found out who she really truly was. So I didn't
Mm.
get to meet her, but um, fortunate enough, I was able to meet Sarita Allen, who then told me the whole history. I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. I knew who Sarita Allen was, but I didn't really know who she was in the Pilates industry. And then she eventually told me about Wendy because they're friends. And then she told me about Dr. Jacqueline, and they are friends. So they were like her three daughters. And so they all traveled with her. She was more than just their Pilates mentor, you know. She was like their mom.
Mm.
They were like sisters. So it was such a deep connection, more than I think they could even explain. And the the passion and love that they speak about her, the way that they talk about their relationship that they had with her is far beyond Pilates, to be honest. And that's what makes it beautiful. A lot of people, and this is just in my opinion, their relationship with her, I feel, is very surface level. They're there to get her knowledge because she was incredibly intelligent. And I would always say that she was the queen of props because she used everything. I mean, she could take, she could take something like this, and she would use it to help you work a little deeper. And I just thought that that was brilliant. And I find my own self, doing that too. I mean, I'm extremely creative too, but she was just, she was like an out of the box thinker. And I think out of all of the elders, her being the only black one, she to me was the most creative. But I mean, are we shocked? Right?
Right.
Um,
That part. Right.
yeah. Are we shocked? And she is the reason why, Black Girl Pilates exists today. I mean, even though I founded it out of my own sort of, loneliness in the industry and after a breakup, but I knew that everybody had to be out there. Somebody was out there. And so even though this, Black Girl Pilates it wasn't supposed to be what it is now. It was just like a passion project. Like, let me just find my own people. And
So
before
it's
I
like a
knew
support
it,
group. It was going to be like
yeah,
a support
that was
group.
basically
Okay.
what it was going to be. I mean, but it became so much more than what I had imagined. Um, and but I think about from every time we have a conference, I think about what it would be like if Kathy was still alive. She'd be over 100 and something now, but
Man.
like to, for us to just sit at her feet and,
You'll be like this.
yes. And
Right.
I imagine her just sitting there in the chair and just all of us just like gathered around and she's just there just looking at us like, wow, I never thought I would ever see this. I never
Right.
thought I would live to see this, Just like I think about with my mom, I'm sure she probably never thought she'd ever live to see a black president or a black
Hmm.
woman vice president.
Right. Yeah.
She
True.
did, you know.
Yeah.
And even though Kathy is no longer with us or whatever, but we still have, we still have Wendy Amos, we still have Dr. Jacqueline Sawyer, we still have Sarita, and Kathy sees us through their eyes. And I
Mm-hmm.
always ask them, like, what do you think she would think every time? And they're like, she would be so proud, Sonny. She would so happy. She would just, it would just, she'd just be overjoyed. Like, it would just be such a beautiful thing. And, so I have to just kind of imagine that, you know, through them because she is the closest that we're ever going to get, to having her presence here. She's They're all we have. And so I try to honor them as much as I can. Because if it was not for them, we would not know our Black history in Pilates anyway,
True.
you know?
And it wasn't um just a comma, right? The Black
Mm-hmm.
History of Pilates with her, with Kathy
Mm-hmm.
Grant. It wasn't a comma, like she was that girl, right?
She was
She
that
was
girl.
in there, right? She was in there, and then
Mm-hmm.
to be that close, you got a Black and a brown woman is that close to the actual creator, the one who actually created the system.
Mm-hmm.
And well,
That's big.
we see how diluted it has become, diluted and delusional. It's
Yeah.
delulu. It is definitely delulu,
Mm-hmm.
at this point, the different things that are going
Mm-hmm.
on. But I do want to say something regarding Black Girl Pilates.
Mm-hmm.
When I was just trying to create a flyer for a class.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm online. So I'm just tagging on to what you said, like you didn't see yourself represented. And I was
Mm-hmm.
just looking for Black women doing Pilates. I didn't know, at the time, because this was early on, in teaching. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do a flyer, for the class. And plates kept coming up, like plates, like dinner plates, like Black plate. I'm like, that is not what I'm saying, so I'm going back to Google. It's like Black
Mm-hmm.
women doing Black women exercise. Then if I put in Black women exercise, and I would see, somebody
Uh,
with some hand weights or maybe a rope or something like that. So it's like,
mm-hmm.
no, I want Pilates. So then I
Mm-hmm.
started looking up silhouettes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then that came up. But you could
Mm-hmm.
tell from the silhouettes. The silhouettes
It
were Black.
wasn't
So it's
us.
like a shadow, but you can tell the bodies. Like, yeah, it definitely,
Right.
wasn't us. And in that process, so this is the funny story. This is how I found out about Black Girl Pilates.
Mm-hmm.
So in that process, I see, you know how when you look in and you see a snippet of an article
Mm-hmm.
and you got to click on it to open up the whole article?
Mm-hmm.
It was you telling somebody that you could do what you want to do with your group if you want to.
Oh.
Basically. Like, I don't, because the person was like, you're being exclusionary, whatever the word was that she
Yeah.
used, like, you don't want people, and you were like, this is my group. Like, I can do what I want to do. And if that's how I want to organize a group. And so you did discuss how representation matters, and there was a logic
Mm-hmm.
behind it, but this person was actually upset. And you like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, lady, you still can't be a part.
Mm-hmm.
You can't sit with us. Like,
Pretty much.
do whatever you want. Get me all out here on these internets, but you can't sit with us, because
Mm-hmm.
people do need to understand that it is essential to have that representation, even if you
Mm-hmm.
never say anything to that person, and especially in Pilates spaces. So for those of you all who
Mm-hmm.
are familiar with Pilates spaces, you know how they can be sometimes, this whole elitist
Yeah.
atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I
Oh yeah.
discovered. So when I'm in classes, so when I, this is not now, but like I've been to some classes before, it wasn't that anybody was necessarily mean, but they weren't
Mm-hmm.
that welcoming. Like, it wasn't no mean girl stuff going on at all. But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel,
Mm-hmm.
so it was like I was invited. No, I was welcomed in. I'm gonna use the word where I was welcomed in, but didn't feel like
Mm-hmm.
that mat was mine. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
belonged in there. It's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
like they're
Yeah.
nice. So I'm not saying anybody was ever mean, because they weren't. They weren't mean, but it was just an energy that was there. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when
Yeah.
I got more intentional about, let me plug into my people. Let me make
Mm-hmm.
sure, because as a new teacher, where you started off, with a Black instructor. My first one was not Black,
Mm-hmm.
but the one who I got my bigger certification was,
Mm-hmm.
shout out to Lincola Green, was Black.
Yay.
As soon as I saw her name, I was like, ooh, I got a master trainer. Yeah. So when I got my actual, like the real, nitty gritty of it, it was, a Black woman. But by that time I had dabbled in, with the little weekend certification, I had dabbled in a little bit. But it was important for me.
Mm-hmm.
I had the ability, and I still do have the ability, to see who sees me and not see who
Mm-hmm.
don't see me. but
Mm-hmm.
everybody doesn't have that ability, right? So it is disheartening when you
Correct.
go into these. I mean, now because I'm in the outdoor industry as well, and them spaces, Jesus, the
Mm-hmm.
color you see is the brown on the trees. Right? That's the speck of
Oh
color you
wow.
don't see.
Yeah.
So yeah, in those spaces. So for me, I wanted to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that I, curated, like I say, a safe space where Black bodies can freely breathe, move, and thrive. If you need to hold your edges down with that scarf on, come on to class. Like, come on to class. Like,
Yeah.
nobody's going to judge you, in this space,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
got your waist train on, whatever, come on to class. You got them
Mm-hmm.
big old fuzzy slippers on, come on to class. Whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
that you need to do to make sure that you feel like who you are in this
Mm-hmm.
space so that you can get what you need. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard to be able to work on yourself when you feel like you're this little guppy in this big old aquarium. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody is
Yeah.
staring at you like, well, why is her hair like that? Why are her nails that long? And why, girl, you got 12-inch
Mm-hmm.
nails? Come on in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just look, if you get on there reforming, just tie their hair up there. I'm gonna tell you that part, don't tie their
Yeah.
hair. Whatever you
Yeah.
need to do, to stay safe. And so that's what I
Mm-hmm.
felt when I read that article. And I was like, who is this? It was no picture of you or anything. I get all on, on social media. I'm like, let me find her.
Mm-hmm.
Let me find. Because you was like, whatever. Like, it was kind of like, that was the conversation. Whatever she was talking about, you like, yeah, but you still can't come. Like, you still can't be in person. Like, when
Mm-hmm.
you're excluding people and it should just be a
Mm-hmm.
group of Pilates, you're like, no, you already have your own space. And so for me, that was my introduction. And that's when I looked, reached out to you. And then you told me about the group. It was a Facebook group at the time. Yeah, it wasn't Instagram. It was a
Mm-hmm.
Facebook group at the time. And that's
Mm-hmm.
how I became involved. But it was hilarious, though. When I saw that article, I was like, who is this?
Mm-hmm.
Who is this telling the people, yeah, say whatever you're going to say. But no, this space was not created for you. And again, we
Yeah.
need people to understand that now. Are we
Mm-hmm.
saying you could never, never, never come into the space? That's not what we're saying. But what you do need to understand are the rules of engagement. If you happen to step into a space that has been curated. So when we do, just like when you create your recipe, when we do what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing, the first people on our mind are Black bodies.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're curating it for, because so many times and for so many years, those bodies walk into spaces that the teacher or the instructor wants to make them fit into the space, as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
teaching the body that's in front of you. If this body got an
Mm-hmm.
extra blessing in the line in the back, you can't, she ain't gonna
Yeah.
be able to put her spine down. She's not gonna be able
Right.
to do that. And she doesn't have a
Mm-hmm.
medical condition because she's not able to do that. She just been blessed.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. She
Yeah.
got a pound cake in the room for the pancakes. Don't be hating.
Yeah.
Don't be hating. We listen and we don't judge. So yeah, so that was my introduction to Black Girl Pilates. And I mean, I've been, very appreciative of it. And
Yeah.
just to see the growth in Black Girl Pilates, like to witness it,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. Like I know you get all these tags and you get these messages from people who are looking,
Mm-hmm.
because I know I'll be tagging you like, I don't know, do we have somebody in Vermont? I don't know. Sign help the people. Do we have somebody in Vermont? But it's a whole community, and it is a global community. It's not just in the
Mm-hmm.
US. So, for
Yeah.
anybody, so if you're out there and if you're looking for someone that looks like you. So let me say this too, as far as Pilates goes. I know you see these posts or these ads or whatever, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
certain aesthetic, and folks want to just go jump on the reformer. First of all, the reformer is not a game. It's not a toy.
Mm-hmm.
It looks cool, but it can be very
Mm-hmm.
dangerous
Yeah.
if you don't
About
know what
it.
you're doing. Yeah, exactly. Right. It can be very
Yeah.
dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. So you don't want to go into a space where the lights are low, the instructor is on the opposite end. Did you see the video with the girl who face planted?
There's so many of them that are Facebook.
Yeah, it was a recent one. It
But
was a recent
yes,
one. I'm like,
I
and
did
it was a guy. It was
actually
a guy next
probably.
to her that came, to assist her.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see the
Yeah.
teacher. Like, I heard the teacher like on the other end of the room. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so you go to these, and so aesthetically it looks, pleasing to you. But learning the foundational exercises will prepare your body so much better to be able to go and to
Mm-hmm.
learn and to move more safely once you get on the reformer. So I do want to say that. So don't feel like you have to go and get on a reformer first. The other thing
Mm-hmm.
I'll say in terms of accessibility, if you feel that Pilates is expensive, I got a whole spiel on that. I mean, we could talk a whole podcast on that one. If you feel that Pilates, no, but seriously though, because this is the way I look at
Yeah.
that. There are some tickets, some price tickets that are higher. Some are intentional because they only want certain people. They're going to just keep it real, or as they say, keep it a band with you, right? There are some people who want to make sure that a certain demographic is not going to come into the space. But the other part is you got to prioritize what it is that you want. So do you or should you go and pay $100 a class? I'm not saying that, but prioritize, because you've been through the drive-through and all week, and you just spent $100 on them drinks that ain't doing much for you, other than raising the sugar level and getting you all jittery and stuff. So look at that. And if you don't do anything else, and especially if you are new, take at least one class with an actual certified instructor, at least one. As opposed to, well, I'm going to get this piece of plastic and I'm gonna slide all around and I'm going over to the YouTube and I'm going to do a video on YouTube. Well, one, that teacher, that instructor may or may not be doing actual Pilates, which is why I say go to a certified instructor first, so that way you'll see what it is that you're doing. The other, they are not responsible if you get injured. They don't see you. It's a recording. And then you're trying to do something to save money and you end up with an injury that's worse than what you would have been, paying. So now you got to go to physical therapy. And then once those sessions run out, guess what the physical therapist is more than likely going to do? Send you to a Pilates class, right? Like, how many people have we gotten from physical therapy? When your sessions run out, they're gonna send you to Pilates. So you would have done all of that, and you ended up back in the Pilates class. So yeah, so make sure that you're mindful about how you're moving, and then just think about how much you want to invest in your wellness. Think of it as an investment in your wellness or a treat. Like that's one of those non-food items that you can treat yourself, because a lot of times we want to treat ourselves and we go to a restaurant and we buy something that's not good for us anyway. But think of that as a non-food treat that you can gift to yourself. You don't have to wait on anybody else. And then you can make the decision, even if you go once a month and then you practice with the online videos, that will cut the cost, as well. So that's what I'm saying, like, because that word expensive is thrown around so much, with Pilates. But hey, what I look at is, am I not worth expensive things? I'm just saying. So if you see that, what B say? I got expensive fabrics because I got expensive hats. Like listen, right? You have to look at it that way. So it is actually an investment, in your wellness. The other thing that I'll say, if you have a black body, I'm just recommending, I think I can say this for Sonia, but I'll let her say it for herself. Find you a black teacher first. Just first. You can go wherever else you want to go, but so Sonia, you put your $1,000 in, because it ain't 2 cents. Put your $1,000 in. What would you say about that? If you have a black body?
I mean, that's, certainly that is the preference. I think we all, when we first started, when I first started, I can count on my hand the amount of Black people that I even taught, and then probably people I brought in during my apprentice time. And even after that, after I had got my certification, I don't think I had any Black clients until probably when I started working for Equinox, and it wasn't even that many. It was maybe like 3. And then after then, I started to get a few and things like that. But I will say this, sometimes, even because of how, and this is for all of us, because of how we were taught, how we were certified, as Black people, we were taught to teach white bodies only. And so because we were taught to teach those white bodies, we take that same way of teaching and we put it out on our own and wonder why it's not working. And so I know for me, on an individual basis, I've been working and still working really, to sort of decolonize my mind as to how I see Black bodies. Because we're all told in certification to teach the body in front of you, but really it should be teach that white body in front of you. If it ain't white, then make sure you teach it as white as possible. But it's supposed to be teach the body that's in front of you. So you look at the body to see what it needs, to see, does this exercise work? No. If it doesn't work here, it's going to work someplace else. If it doesn't work someplace else or any of the other places, maybe that's just not the exercise for him. But there's so many exercises within the system, so many pieces of equipment. He gives us so many choices, that if you it doesn't work here, you can go there. If it don't work that way, and do it this way. There's so many, and that's why he gave us so many exercises and so many pieces of equipment to do it on. And so, you know, like I was saying, even though your instructor may be black, they still may they might still have that mindset. But the good thing is, even if they do, it's the fact that you're actually with someone who looks like you,
That part.
it makes such a big difference. And you don't have to code switch. You don't have to be explain why you got braids or why your head is shaved, or or
Right.
use my L last night on your hair. And you don't have to explain those things. You got dreads and you've been growing them for 25 years. I mean, you don't have to explain those things, because culturally we already understand those things, and we know how to talk to each other, and it's not going to come across as if we're being judged because of our hair, because we already know that, like, oh, okay, well, just, if we're on the reformer, like, hey, just put it up in a ball, because I just want to make sure, that your hair doesn't get caught in the springs. Okay, well, that makes
Exactly.
sense, and
Yeah.
things like that, because we know that we understand, you know, that we know that's part of our culture, you know. And it's not as coming across as if, well, I don't even know why you got braids in your hair. You shouldn't even be doing that, and that kind of thing, you know. Um, so really, I guess what's most important you is that you're able to work with a black teacher, because it makes such a big difference. And you know, I I was introduced to Pilates by a black person, a black woman in a black school with black people every week. I went to the same class. There was not one white person there. It was me, that black teacher, and all these other black students, and me. And it was great. And I didn't
Nice.
really
Yeah.
think about it or really truly appreciate it until years later.
When you
And
start
I was,
working in the field, right? You got out
yeah,
there like,
and this is
yeah.
as I was starting to, when people would ask me how I got into Pilates, I was like, oh my God, like I was blessed to do this with a black woman in a black school with black people. How many people at that time, which was 2006, got a chance? Who did that? Not many
Right.
people, not many, and so for that to be my story, it also tells me, what that there was a purpose. I was working in that purpose. Um, I was being prepared for such time as this,
Mm.
to start, Black Girl Pilates, and to also be, to be a part of Black history, but also watch as my colleagues become history as well. And that's a beautiful thing. I mean, I would have never. I was just trying to start a support group, but the support group became, sort of a global, international, you know, something else,
Indeed.
you
Yeah.
know. I remember thinking that, oh my God, when we got 1,000 followers, I thought it was the best thing ever. And now, we went from having, like, a couple of hundred to thousands to, now we have, but over 20,000 followers on Instagram, and over 5,000 followers on TikTok now, if we get to keep it. Uh, and
Who
even on
knows, right?
Facebook, our pages, I think there's like 3,600, people who like the page. And then we have the Black Girl Pilates Tribe, which is like anybody who's interested in Pilates, including those of them who are instructors, and that's almost 4,000 people. I mean, so, that's a lot of
That's a
people.
lot. It is. It is.
Hmm. Um, and to see, I thought I would never, um, when Black Girl Pilates first started, it was like everything was just really emotional. It was like every time I found somebody, it's like, oh my God, or they found Black Girl Pilates, oh my God, and I thought eventually, it would die down and stop, but it really doesn't, because even now, even though we're so much, you can see more of us out there and things like that, like it's still, it's emotional for the person that finds us, because
Right,
they're like,
like me.
never thought,
When I found the
you
article, but I have to say this. So I found the article
know.
online, but then when I got into that group, I'm like, this is Wakanda. Like what?
Yes,
All of these people, when I first got into that group, I was like, oh my God, this is heaven. To be in, it
yes,
was
and
just such a relief to be able to breathe. That's my mission. I mean, I really do
hmm
want Black bodies to be able to freely breathe, move, and
hmm
thrive. Like those are, I'm intentional about holding those spaces so that we are
hmm
able to just be. Like
yeah,
there's no expectation. We listen and we
hmm
don't judge. We look and we don't
yeah,
judge. We just need to
hmm
be able to relax. If somebody wanted to come to class and all they want to do is go to sleep because they want to listen to the music, go to sleep. If that's, because we're tired.
yeah,
We're tired. Whatever
yeah,
it
we're
is,
just
we want to
tired
make
anyway.
sure that we don't make anybody exactly, but we
Yeah.
don't want to make anybody feel weirded out, when you come into the space,
hmm
or there's certain things that you're not able to do. It's like what?
hmm
Do you see what's the Sir Mix a Lot song? You see her butt? Do you see like, oh
Yeah.
my God? Yeah, like yeah,
Yeah.
the Lord, you
Yeah.
gotta take that up with the Lord. I didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
Like you gotta take that up with the Lord. But yeah, but that's what we want to make sure, that we're doing. I do it. Thank you very much. I mean, for you even having that need and you fulfill your need like Joseph
hmm
Pilates, right? You fulfilled your need and was able to bless so many
hmm
other people as a result
hmm
of you fulfilling the need that you
hmm
had, but it also let you know that you were not alone. Like you said, you knew
hmm
you had that in your mind. I
hmm
cannot be the only one. Like
hmm
I cannot be the only one that's
Yeah.
out here looking. We just need to
hmm
put the tracks down, right? So that the train can start moving forward.
Yeah.
Like I lay these tracks down to make sure that I'm
hmm
able to usher some other people, into this so that we can all move forward as a
hmm
collective. And that's,
Yeah.
what's happening. It's
Yeah.
definitely
And
what's happening.
um, I just when I think about it, I was trying to answer a question. And what I tell my students in the MAT certification, which we could talk about later, is, I asked them, why do you want to teach Pilates? And, some of them was just like, oh, it changed my life, all kinds of different answers and stuff like that. And so I said, well, what I want you to think about is, what question can you answer out there?
Mhm.
Because I answered a question for myself, because there was needed to be created. I said, so what out there has not been answered? And I said, you might feel that now, oh, you oversaturated. I said, no, not oversaturated. I've been wanting to know for 18 years.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
You may be that person to answer it, and having those conversations with those apprentices, like I had one apprentice who's since graduated, and her, religiously, she's Muslim. And I was like, who out there is teaching any black women Muslim? I said, I'm not
Exactly.
Muslim.
That's a
I don't
whole
know.
market.
Yeah,
That's
I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know your religion. I don't know what's expected. I don't know what you can and cannot do. I can I can I create a space for them to be there? Yeah, but are they really going to feel safe, even though we're black? Are they really going to be safe with me? Or are they going to be safe with you?
Yes. Yeah.
And so I said, maybe. And I said, I'm not trying to say that you are, but maybe I am. Maybe you are the answer to that question.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
it's those kinds of conversations that I enjoy having. And when I do the lives, I try to be a little bit more educational than dragging. But um, I've really been trying to push my students to, there's something in your heart. There's something there.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to answer the question. You have the answer. I don't. I don't have the answer that you had. I had the answer for this. you know, I have the answer for a couple of other things. Black Girl Pilates is my answer for all of us. But you have the answer to some other things that I don't have. I can't create a space for queer people. Teresa did. I
Yeah.
cannot.
Yeah.
That is not my experience. Can I make my folks feel safe because they're black? Yes. Can I make them feel safe because they're queer? I don't know because I'm not. That's not my
Right.
experience. Not, I'm not
Right.
in a body. I'm not in a non-binary body. I'm not in a fat body. I'm not in any of those bodies. So I can't create something that I have not experienced. So you are probably that person who should create those experiences.
That's good stuff.
And
So
that's
can you
totally
talk
fine.
about, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was done. You can go ahead.
Can you talk about like who you're talking to, those students? So can you talk about the Black Girl Pilates certification program? So that people know where those students come from. So it's not students in the classroom doing math. Yeah.
Yeah, if I had asked myself years ago, one, would I be doing this? Probably not. I was like, no, I wouldn't see myself. And then the other thing would be, would I see myself certifying anybody? I always say, oh, I never do that. This is whatever. But now that I think about it, um, I think that the reason why I said I would never certify anybody is, and most people might think this is a reach, but I don't feel like it is. Um, White supremacy has us bamboozled about a lot of stuff. And I felt that I just didn't have whatever qualifications they feel like you're supposed to have. I've been teaching for 18 years, and to me, I'm a student for life. Like I can teach for 30 years. I still a student. But it's something about you know us as Black people not feeling like we got it, or that we
Mm-hmm.
should do it, you know. Um, and I remember, and then I'll be able to go into it. I remember a conversation in our instructor group where, people were talking about, I feel like I was probably trying to encourage people, like, oh, teach workshops, blah, blah, blah. And I remember this one person who was just like, well, people probably don't want to be in no magazine. They don't probably want to be no workshop. They don't want to do this. That maybe they don't want to do that. Maybe they're not good enough to do this. And I was just like, this is the very thing that we have been told by white supremacy is that we're not, we shouldn't be trying to, why do we want to be out front?
Mm-hmm.
It's not about us being out front. It's about us. It's about us living out our purpose, and our purpose might be to be in a magazine. Our purpose might be to teach that workshop. Our purpose might be to mentor other instructors. Our purpose might be to create Melanin Matters. You know what I mean? Um, and so when I was throwing around the idea of doing the certification, I was talking to Jungle Johanna, and she was starting her math certification, and I was just asking her about it, and she's like, girl, I don't even really know what I'm doing, but I'm just doing it. She said, because these white people be out here, they just put something together and people think they're the best, and they get 200
Baby.
followers and be
Yes.
on Morning America and all this stuff. And she's like,
Yes.
I'm trying to certify us. Now she's open to everyone, but she's really trying to get more, Black people who are teaching Pilates and things like that. So, I was like, I don't know. I said, I actually kind of think about doing it. She's like, you should do it. And I was like, really? I was like, girl, I don't even have a manual. I don't have nothing. She's like, I have no manual. So I was like, but then I realized when I thought about it, I was like, I do have a manual. It's called Return to
Mm-hmm.
Life. So why should I rewrite what has already been written? All I have to do is add my own little zhuzh to it, add a lot of Black history to it, add a whole lot of Blackness to it. And so I stepped out there you know, and said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I wasn't even going to do anything online. And my therapist actually talked me into doing it. She was, because I kept getting people who said, would you do this online? Would you do this online? I was like, oh, well, you know, blah, 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 blah. And my therapist was like, why wouldn't you? She said,
Mm-hmm.
don't you want to reach don't you want to reach, as many people as possible? And I was like, you're right. So I did, because I mean, I wouldn't have met a lot of the students that I have today if I hadn't reached out. And so I ended up with the first group, I think about 20, 23 people. So it was like maybe like 18 online and maybe like 6 or 7 in person, which is a big group. My second group was even bigger. It was close to 30. Uh,
Mm.
so that was a lot. That was a lot. But it's been manageable after then. But I would have never thought that I would do certifications. And now, I mean, it's probably, it's going to be 2 years, believe it or not. It's going to be 2 years this year.
That's good stuff.
Um, and my next one starts the 8th. It's 6 weeks long. It's 5 weeks of, just teaching, um, and everything. And then, the 6th week is test out and graduation. And I mean, there's a lot of things that I'll probably, change over time after I get out of graduate school in May. But, um, for now, I feel like for what I charge, um, my students get a hell of a lot. They really get a lot. And it's a lot of things that I did not get in certification. Did not get Black history at all. They talked about the elders and they kind of, maybe just a little bit about Kathy, but there really
That's a
wasn't. It was
comma.
like, get
Right. She was
in.
a comma in that
Yeah, she was a
section.
comma.
Yeah.
This person and comma this person and comma this person.
Uh-huh.
You know, but it was just like, get in, teach the exercises, teach the contraindications, um, verbal cues, hands-on stuff, springs, etc., etc. So it's all of that. But I wanted my students to be able to get so much more out of it. So when they pay that $1,200, they'd be like, "Damn, I got a hell of a lot of shit out of this stuff." Like, I was like, "You get a forever mentor." Like I mentor everybody. I said, but I'm always here for you. And I may not be your forever, your mentor every day. You might have somebody else who is that, but I'm always here. You get a Black history that you're never told. You get access to people who are the closest to Kathy that we have that's still here on earth. Like you have access to these people. You can talk to them. You can go take a session with them. You can do all this stuff. You know, you get these 5, 6 amazing workshops. You get anatomy, you get pre and postnatal, you get working with, queer bodies, fat bodies, etc. You get the business of Pilates. You get what's the other one that I have? Pre postnatal. I'm missing one. I think I mentioned the Black history, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get all of those workshops, and you get the workshop that I teach that's called What's Propping, which is very Black. You get props,
Right.
I mean, you get all of this, and I'm helping you create your own little group of props because you have to purchase those things unless you already have them. So you have all of these things, and you learn how to use the magic circle, which is a Pilates prop.
Mm-hmm.
How do you take that as your base, and and learning how to use that first, and then taking that base and translating it to other non-Pilates props, like a ball, like a towel, like you know, arm weights, like, leg weights, all those things, So you kind of walk out with all of this stuff and all of this knowledge. And not only that, um, the other thing that makes it so different is that, and this might just be me as a social worker, but I want to know who my teachers really are. I want them to know
Right.
who they are, because your who you are is representative of who you're going to be as a teacher. Do
Mm-hmm.
you know what your weaknesses are? Do you know what triggers you? Do you know what your insecurities are? And we talk about insecurities. I said those things are important, especially to you, for you commanding a class, being able to deal with problematic people, or just dealing with even teachers who could be very mean and, well, I don't even think you're that great teacher or whatever, well, that's not my business
You said
that you don't like me,
anyway.
you know. So we really dive deep um, into this, into the certification. And, I also tell them, I was like, listen, I know that I am the the teacher trainer, but I am also very much a student of you,
Mm-hmm.
because you bring something that I don't have. And so I want to learn it, whatever it is that you have. So just like I'm sharing your knowledge, you are also sharing your knowledge with me. And you may not know as much about Pilates as I do, but when your brain starts firing, you start coming up with all this stuff. I mean, I'm just going to be soaking it up, because again, you're going to answer a question that I've been trying to answer forever. And then you, you know,
You're
coming
like, I
in.
know that. I know that already. I know that. Right. Right.
Yeah, I would have never have thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
I would have
Mm-hmm.
never have even considered it. And thanks to you, now I know, and many of us do.
Right.
So we're here learning together. It's not you learning just from me. We're learning together. I just happen to have more experience. That's it. That's it. But it doesn't make me
So
better
can you
than
tell people how to get in touch with you in order to
you.
register for the program? Because we're coming
Mhm,
into the runway. We're gonna land this
mhm,
plane, but I want to make
mhm,
sure that you put that information out. And I'll also put it
mhm,
in the show description as well with the links.
mhm,
But just let people know how they can become a
mhm.
part of your training program for Black Girl Pilates.
Yeah, so there's two links in the bio and Instagram. There's a link for online, and there's a link for in person. So for in person, I can only get 10 people in the space that I'm in. Online, I'll probably take about 20, which is a lot, but still, I just love Black people. I was just like, I'll take 60 of y'all. Not really, but I mean, I'll take, so you can register full price through those links. Now, because I know Black people love a payment plan and we love a layaway, I do have a
Right,
payment
right, right.
plan. I do have a payment plan, which is like it's like $300 for the first. That's your non-refundable deposit, and after then, every 2 weeks is $300.
Okay.
So then pay it off that way. I can also be flexible if you tell me your situation as well. So
Mm,
I'll say that. But I haven't been burned by anybody since. And listen, as Black people, we're gonna pay $1,200 for something. We're gonna pay $1,200 for it, and
yeah.
we're gonna get everything we could possibly get from it, right? Um, so if you're interested in the payment plan, then you will have to email me. Let me know that you're interested in the payment plan, and I will send you I'll send you an invoice that basically will come around. It'll send a reminder every 2 weeks, that your payment is due, and things like that. But again, if you have special circumstances and that kind of doesn't work for you for whatever reason, give me a really good reason, then I'm definitely flexible in working with you. And plus you get all these great recordings and all this kind of stuff like that. So I mean, you know, um, but I'm excited about, my next group of folks, and if folks have questions, they can always email blackgirlpilates@gmail.com. Um, and I'm happy to, give more information if folks are just kind of like, I still didn't understand what you're saying. Sometimes that happens. Um,
Good
but I've
stuff.
been in New York too long and talking too fast in New York. So
Good stuff. Well, I have enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
Thank you for dropping the gems that you dropped. Thank you for the information for the Black history, in Pilates. And again, thank you for having that need that you didn't know other people had as well. Well,
Mhm.
you knew you couldn't have been the only one, but you didn't know how much of a need it was for so many people. And
Yeah.
it's globally, you all. So make sure you are
Yeah.
following Black Girl Pilates and plug in if you're interested in becoming a Pilates teacher. But also, even if you're not interested in becoming a Pilates teacher, but you really want to know more about the method, I would still say go ahead and get into the program because you may change your
Mhm.
mind and then you already have your
Yeah.
certification. So you
Yeah.
may change your mind and say, well, yeah, I think I do want to teach this, like, let me see what
Mhm.
it's about. But you want to get
Yeah.
all of those foundational principles down first
Mhm.
before you jump into the shenanigans, malarkey, and foolishness that's going on in the
Yeah.
Pilates. But
Yeah.
again, you all, thank you for joining us for this special Black History episode of Melanin Matters. And on that note, y'all take it light. We're out.